So gaming has turned into this, it's turned into this, it's turned into this, it's turned into this, it's turned into this. Pause. How did we end up here? Let's go back to old gen. No, not this old gen or this old gen. I mean old gen. The PS2 era. The PS2 released in the year 2000 and lasted about 13 years. This being the year they stopped producing PS2 games. And those 13 years brought some absolute bangers. I'm talking the Midnight Club games, GTA, Mortal Kombat. It was a console that revived the Tekken series with Tekken 5, following the bad praise of Tekken 4. I want to call this the golden era. Games were filled to the brim with content from the get-go. And this was only made better if you had someone over to play co-op with. That is until the next patch came out or the next DLC pack and... Wait, what? Let's move on, shall we? The Xbox 360 released in late 2005 and the PS3 released in early 2006. These consoles brought with them some of the most iconic IPs that are still praised to this day. I'm talking the Uncharted, the Batman Arkham games, BioShock, and even some of the most revered COD games. Plus, it brought the most underrated Dragon Ball Z game of all time, Burst Limit. And although it was a much graphically superior console to the PS2, I'm still gonna group the PS3 into the golden era. After all, online play was actually viable now. Back then, access to the PlayStation Network was free for all users, while for the Xbox 360, you needed Xbox Live. Despite this, local multiplayer was still essential. I mean, come on, Halo 3 split screen? Me and my friends still play Halo 3 to this day.
Bubble shield! Oh my god, no way! Is it?
Yo, I'm actually... Hit me! Yeah!
But then this happened.
What the heck is that?
I have no idea what I'm looking at.
Downloadable content, or DLC, was actually available in the 1990s. The game Total Annihilation apparently had free downloadable expansion packs every month. I was also there, not being born. But I'd say around the late 2000s to the early 2010s, that paid downloadable content started to rise. Call of Duty Zombies had DLC zombie maps, and Mortal Kombat had paid DLC fighters, and some games like FIFA and their Ultimate Team game mode had in-game currencies called FIFA points. And trust me, these were and still are some absurd prices. So at the end of the Xbox 360 and the PS3 era, DLC was becoming a regular thing, which brings us to the time of the PS4 and the Xbox One. Released in November of 2013, these consoles brought with them responsive online gameplay and immersive single-player games. But there was one caveat. Almost every single game that was released had a DLC aspect to them. Some didn't, of course, but most did. FIFA still had egregious microtransactions. Mortal Kombat continued with extra fighters. Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, which released in 2015, is still getting DLC to this day. Now let's just get into specifics. When Mortal Kombat 9 released, it released with 27 playable characters, excluding the DLC ones, 31 with them, and 32 including Kratos, which was a PS3 exclusive. But what if I told you the game actually had 35 characters? These are the 3 non-playable bosses: Goro, Kintaro, and Shao Kahn. Players had no access to them. You could only fight against them. These characters were never released as DLC, probably because they were too overpowered. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, for that, let's just skip to the next MK game, which was released on the PS4, called Mortal Kombat X. The game launched with 24 characters, 33 characters including all the DLC. Let's look at the first combat pack. Let's just focus on Tanya for this point. So in the story, you can fight 4 non-playable characters. You could fight Sindel, Tanya, Rain, and Baraka. Now, I'll exclude these 3 because they didn't have full functioning movesets and they were clearly just ported over from Mortal Kombat 9. But Tanya, however, was completely brand new. Yes, she didn't have a full moveset, but she ended up being DLC and had the same moves her NPC version did, along with some new ones. My point is that she could have clearly been roster day 1, but knowing how things work now, I either had no time to finish her or WB was like, wait, let's just release her as DLC. Now, I'll excuse this portion of MKX because it's only one fighter, but what I won't excuse is the amount of microtransactions this game had. Sure, paying for extra skins is fine. They take time to make and designers should get their fair share. They weren't expensive either. $4 for 3 skins, that's a really good price. And each fighter outside of the combat pack was $5. Oh, trust me, these numbers are gonna matter so much more when we get to the next games. But just look at this. You could pay $20 to get everything in the crypt and pay $5 for 30 easy fatalities. I shouldn't have to mention why this is stupid, but I'm going to. You wanna do a fatality? Read the input and do it. You want everything in the crypt unlocked? Play it. You might have fun doing it as well. This is a disgusting way to milk any sort of extra cash for WB. Let's move to MK11. This game had its own in-game store. Time crystals are a thing, which is its own premium currency. And while you could earn some in the Towers of Time game mode, you could only achieve a certain amount before being forced to buy them with real money. Just look at this. If you wanted to play Frost, the only unlockable character in this game, you either played to a certain point in the MK11 story mode, or you paid $6 to have early access to her. Let me repeat that. $6. New DLC characters characters were $5 in the previous game, but a character that is on the base roster is $6. I don't care that I can just play the story to unlock her. This should straight up just not be an option. It's egregious and money hungry. Now this is where they kicked it up several notches. Mortal Kombat 1 releases in 2023, and the first sign that something was wrong was when the Deadly Alliance skin for Scorpion released. This skin was $10. So now we're doubling it. This is taking the piss. I would pay maybe $5, but 10 is insane. This is equivalent to 2 DLC fighters in Mortal Kombat X. This only got worse. They released a Halloween fatality, which was just a cutscene. Guess how much? $10 again. Needless to say, the community lost it. The game also had its fair share of NPCs in the story. 2 of them were Ermac and Quan Chi that eventually ended up being DLC fighters. Now, I don't know about Quan Chi, but there's a lot of evidence out there to support that Ermac was supposed to be base game. WB definitely forced NRS with a specific release window that either didn't allow for Ermac to be playable, or yet again, they just decided to milk money. Now, there was one game that actually changed the lives of multiplayer games forever. July of 2017, Fortnite was released. Free to play for all users. Remember that time when everyone was bad? When you got around the top 10, your heart was in your throat and you were so excited but also terrified? Now it's filled with disgusting sweat like this. Now, you're a good dude. I'm not trying to take that away from you. I'm sure this takes a lot of time and effort to get to. But regardless, Fortnite tryhards need to touch grass, especially if you're not a monetized streamer or YouTuber. Anyways, this game had its own in-game store with purely cosmetic skins to purchase. And some of these prices were a little absurd, but I'll excuse it because after all, it was a free game. But then I looked closely at the prices. Some of these premium skins costed 1,200 V-Bucks. And at a time, you could only purchase 1,000 V-Bucks at the least. This costed $9. If you wanted to just get this skin, you had to pay $18. This is just to highlight this disgusting business practice that future games are incorporating similarly as well. And really quickly, let's just look at the store. What the hell? What am I oh my god. Now, Fortnite had this thing called the Battle Pass. There was a free version, which basically had nothing in it, and there was a paid version, which had premium skins. From this point on, I actually can't tell you the amount of games that have completely ripped off this exact same business model and shoved it down your throat.
I came to you with those calculations. We thought we might start a chain reaction that would destroy the entire world. I remember it well. I found it. We did.
Recently, Samurai Jack released for the Multiverses game. When I heard he was coming out, I was so excited because Samurai Jack is one of my favorite characters of all time. And I started playing a little bit early just to get used to the movement and some of the characters. And when the release date happened, I had to buy the Battle Pass to get access to him. Honestly, who's to blame but myself? Of course that was gonna happen. So yeah, this game specifically, while being free to play, incorporated fighters into the Battle Pass. Now, I think the way it works is that Samurai Jack will eventually be playable after this Battle Pass is over, but this effectively made the character paid DLC. And trust me, when I opened the store, I was... Is it over? Tekken 8 added its own battle pass. COD has its own battle pass. Call of Duty has guest character skins. If you told me this was possible in Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, I would have thought you were an idiot. But now we live in a time where this is the norm. Let's talk about Sparking Zero. This is a sequel to Budokai Tenkaichi 3, which released on the PS2 almost 20 years prior. You know the amount of characters that were in that game? 161. That's a ridiculous amount. Now, obviously back then, they just poured over the same characters from the previous game, which is a lot easier. But it had almost every single Dragon Ball character you could think of, at least in that era anyways, all the way from OG Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball GT. Now, Sparking Zero is releasing with 160 plus characters in this day and age. That is insane, and I couldn't be happier. Well, actually, I could a little bit. At the time of me making this video, there's only a few slots remaining, and it's abundantly clear that GT and the movies are most likely going to be DLC. Characters that essentially defined this video game series are getting shelved as DLC. Now, if I'm wrong, then I'll eat my words, but...
It's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good.
Now, there are two sides here. One side said, this is ridiculous, they were playable in the previous game, they should be in this game. The other side says, look, games have become so impressive graphically, and designing all these different characters and these movesets takes a lot more time. And to that point, I agree, to a certain extent. Games have changed, graphics have changed. It's never been easy to make games, and it's never been harder now. So is that to say that because these games take a lot longer and so much effort to produce, that microtransactions and DLC fighters are the only way to make up for that? I'm not a video game developer or anything, so I'm in no position to say no. If anything, I would say yes. This industry is notorious for overworking its developers. And this even extends to Hollywood, with CGI artists getting drilled to the bone. Single player games are the only thing that hasn't exactly changed from the old days, except graphically. You play the story, you grind the side story, and that's the game. And you move on. God of War Ragnarok recently released a free story expansion. And I was shocked when I heard that. In this day and age, that's unheard of. It goes to show you that there are some studios out there that are still passionate and care about the content they make, and not just for the sake of milking prices. crisis. That isn't to say though that studios aren't figuring out ways to milk single player games. I'm looking at you, Last of Us 2 remake, but unfortunately, multiplayer games are a different story. It's just become overwhelming. You can't even open a multiplayer game up anymore without having these skins, these battle passes shoved into your face. You sometimes can't even play some games without having an internet connection. Black Ops 6 has confirmed to do this. I'm gonna ask, what has gaming become? It's become a never-ending cycle to milk as much money out of the gamer as possible. I remember a time when I used to play Tekken 5, and when I beat the arcade mode for the first time, I unlocked Roger Jr. And then I realized these gray spaces above were all unlockable characters. And I was so excited, I was like, oh, who else is there that I could unlock? And eventually, I unlocked Devil Jin, and I was so happy. I remember a time when I played Tenkaichi 3, and because I didn't realize you had to press R3 to progress through the story, I just used to play single battle. But eventually, when I did realize to press the R3 button, I eventually started unlocking characters. I remember going on to single battle and seeing future Gohan for the first time. I had never seen him before in the game, and I was like, oh my god, who else is there? And when I saw Super Saiyan 4 Goku, I lost it. This was my battle pass. I was ecstatic, and unfortunately, I probably won't ever get that same feeling ever again. Because gaming has changed to the point where now everything needs to be announced before the game releases. We know every character that's going to be in the game. And as much as I don't want to say it, it kind of sucks. But honestly, that's just how gaming is now. And we have no choice but to accept it. Thanks for watching.